Really, feminists? Come on, there's got to be a happy medium between a husband making his wife wear this and a husband making his wife wear this. I know 1619 was bad, but this is happening right now, right under your nose rings. You knew how wrong it was when tens of millions of South Africans had been treated like second-class citizens just because of their race. But here's the thing. Today, right now, hundreds of millions of women are treated worse than second-class citizens. When you mandate that one category of human beings don't even have the right to show their face, that's apartheid.
So now, Bill Maher is setting his sights on the woke warriors, those professional activists pushing their virtue-signaling agendas through what can only be described as performative outrage. And it's absolutely savage. The sharp-tongued host of Real Time with Bill Maher has officially run out of patience, and he's dishing out verbal smackdowns like it's open season on fake activism. And trust me, you don't want to miss this. I've got all the mic drop moments lined up, so smash that subscribe button and let's dive in.
If you're out protesting for a couple of hours wearing this, you have to go all the way and spend an afternoon running errands wearing one of these. You can't side with the people who ruthlessly oppress women without at least getting a taste of what you're supporting.
If there's one thing I admire about Bill Maher, it's that he doesn't mince words or waste time. He goes straight for the jugular. No fluff, no filter. When the woke crowd starts bending over backward to defend terrorists under the guise of social justice, Maher calls it exactly what it is: delusional hypocrisy. If you're so quick to shout slogans from 1,000 miles away, blindly backing a cause you barely understand, then maybe, just maybe, you should try living a day or two in the shoes of the victims you conveniently ignore. It's easy to post hashtags and wear a pin. It's a whole different story when you're buried beneath the rubble of the ideology you're cheerleading for. Maher's opening statement was a wrecking ball, but the next statement was a bomb. Listen to this.
Well, now that summer is here and the Hamas-backing college protesters have dispersed back to their summer internships at Goldman Sachs, I thought it might be a good time to say this. I actually admire your youthful idealism, and our world would be poorer without it. Much like your parents who just wasted 300 grand on that ignorance factory you call a college. Not that I think it's your fault being this poorly educated and morally confused. That takes a village. Shitty schools, overindulgent parents, social media, that priest who rubbed lotion on you. But 3 cheers to you for at least having the impulse to seek a cause in something bigger than yourself. It's just that the one you picked, you missed the boat by a fucking mile.
I mean, we could spend all day unpacking the mess that is our watered-down education system, a system that seems more focused on churning out obedient, agenda-driven robots than critical, independent thinkers. Today, students rack up hundreds of thousands in college tuition, drown in student loan debt, and walk away with degrees in grievance studies and an alarming inability to think for themselves. If the education system were doing its job, maybe these graduates wouldn't end up blindly supporting woke ideologies, or worse, sympathizing with actual terrorists. It's not rocket science to figure out that Hamas is a terrorist organization. That information is literally at our fingertips. But still, people remain proudly ignorant, clinging to slogans over substance. To his credit, Maher throws them a tiny bone. He does praise them for one thing: they at least have the courage to fight for something bigger than themselves. Too bad it's often rooted in nonsense.
But here's the good news. You want a cause? 'Cause I totally got one for you. Apartheid. Yeah, apartheid, the thing you've been shouting about with Israel for months. Never mind that Israeli Arabs are actually full citizens. You learned that word from a 2 Chainz song and discovered that protesting South Africa's apartheid in the 80s was a righteous cause, and so it was. To this day, when celebrities are asked who is the person they most admire, one name is always the safest choice.
Nelson Mandela.
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 So naturally, when you heard that Israel was an apartheid state, it gave you such a boner, you literally pitched a tent.
Nelson Mandela fought a noble and righteous cause, the freedom and liberation of South Africa from the brutal grip of apartheid. His struggle wasn't rooted in trendy slogans or hashtag activism. It was a battle for real justice, grounded in sacrifice, discipline, and an unshakable moral compass. Mandela didn't fight for a woke cause or seek applause from social media echo chambers. He read extensively, thought deeply, and was profoundly informed about the world he was trying to change. He didn't weaponize identity to silence others or peddle half-baked ideologies to feel morally superior. Instead, he built bridges, not echo chambers. He understood that true liberation required intellect, empathy, and a long-term vision, not just a catchy chant and a protest sign. Today's so-called activists could learn a thing or two.
You knew how wrong it was when tens of millions of South Africans had been treated like second-class citizens just because of their race. But here's the thing. Today, right now, hundreds of millions of women are treated worse than second-class citizens. When you mandate that one category of human beings don't even have the right to show their face, that's apartheid. And it goes on in a lot of countries.
And that right there is the problem with so many woke activists. They loudly profess love and admiration for historic figures like Nelson Mandela, posting his quotes and calling him an inspiration, but they rarely fight for the kinds of causes he actually championed. Bill Maher's point is painfully simple. If you claim Mandela is your role model, then you should be standing up for the oppressed in the way he did. Today, millions of women in Arab countries and other parts of the world are still denied basic human rights. They can't vote, can't own property, and in many cases can't even leave their homes without a male escort. These women live under a modern-day form of apartheid, imposed not by race, but by gender, and yet they have no global movement, no protest marches, no social media hashtags rallying to their defense. Instead, we see thousands of college students passionately waving flags and chanting slogans in support of terrorist organizations. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so tragic.
For the last couple of years, women in Iran have been saying, "Take this hijab and shove it." Because in 2022, a young woman named Mahsa Amini was arrested for wearing her mandatory hijab incorrectly and then died in police custody. And now security forces have killed over 500 people protesting her death and this obvious human rights violation. How about defunding those police?
Bill Maher doesn't let up. He keeps the heat on woke activists, especially those championing the reckless defund the police narrative. All it took was a handful of bad actors in uniform for them to demand dismantling the entire system, with no plan for what comes next. Maher, with his signature blend of sarcasm and sharp logic, highlights the absurdity of throwing out an entire institution based on isolated incidents, while turning a blind eye to actual authoritarian abuses happening elsewhere. Take, for example, countries where the so-called fashion police are not a satirical exaggeration, but a brutal, government-backed force. In places like Iran, women are harassed, arrested, and publicly dehumanized simply for choosing not to wear a hijab. Imagine that state-sanctioned oppression over a piece of cloth. Yet the outraged mobs in the West stay oddly silent, no hashtags, no fiery campus protests, because calling out those regimes doesn't fit the script. It's selective activism at its worst, and Maher's not afraid to say it out loud.
Amnesty International says that Iranian authorities are waging a war on women that subjects them to constant surveillance, beatings, sexual violence, and detention. What P. Diddy calls a hotel stay. In Iran, Me Too isn't a movement. It's what a woman says when another woman says, "My life sucks."
When you take a moment to compare the United States, a country often criticized and vilified by woke activists, to many other nations around the world, it becomes clear we're living in a kind of paradise, especially for women. Here, women can vote, own property, drive, pursue any career they choose, run for office, speak freely, protest publicly, and make decisions about their own lives without needing permission from a husband, father, or state. They can lead companies, raise families, or do both. They can walk the streets without fear of being arrested over a piece of clothing. And yet, instead of appreciating and defending these hard-earned freedoms, many choose to bash the very system that made them possible. But that's not even the most frustrating part. What's truly maddening is how so many seem to instinctively side with the oppressor, not the oppressed. They shout support for regimes and ideologies that would strip them of every right they currently enjoy. It's hypocrisy masquerading as virtue, and Bill Maher isn't afraid to call it out.
Yasmin Mohammed is a human rights activist who got married off to a Muslim man with fundamentalist views about women, not exactly uncommon in the Muslim world. He forced her to wear the niqab all the time, including once beating her because she took her hijab off at home because the apartment had a window through which people might see in. And this was in Vancouver. Here's what Yasmin said about veiling. It just suppresses your humanity entirely. It's like a portable sensory deprivation chamber, and you are no longer connected to humanity. You can't see properly. You can't hear properly. You can't speak properly. People can't see you. You can only see them. Just little things, passing people on the street and just making eye contact and smiling, that's gone. You're no longer part of this world, and so you very quickly just shrivel up into nothing under there. And that's my answer when someone says Islamophobe. Okay.
Did you catch that awkward silence? That wasn't just a statement, it was a punchline that deserved thunderous applause. But of course, that's the conversation no one wants to have. The moment you criticize Islam, you're instantly labeled an Islamophobe. Meanwhile, criticism of other religions, especially Christianity, is not only tolerated, but often celebrated. You'll find countless Muslims publicly critiquing Western values, Christianity, or secularism, yet any scrutiny of Islamic doctrine is treated as a hate crime. That awkward silence exposes something deeper, our double standard. We bend over backward to defend Islam from even the mildest critique, while other faiths are routinely dissected, mocked, and challenged in public discourse. The fear of being canceled, shamed, or branded intolerant keeps many from speaking out, and that's exactly what I respect about Bill Maher. He doesn't tiptoe, he doesn't whisper, he says the uncomfortable truths people are too scared to touch, and he does it with clarity, boldness, and zero apologies.
Really, feminists? Come on, there's got to be a happy medium between a husband making his wife wear this and a husband making his wife wear this. I know 1619 was bad, but this is happening right now. Right under your nose rings.
Now, Bill turns up the heat on modern feminists, and it's long overdue. Kanye West often finds himself under fire for how his wife dresses, with critics calling it controlling, sexist, or even oppressive. Social media lights up, think pieces flood the internet, and self-proclaimed feminists rush to denounce him. But where's that same energy when it comes to Iranian women, who are literally forced by law to cover their hair, their bodies, and their voices? Not a whisper, not a tweet, not a protest. The silence is deafening. If Kanye's wife choosing to wear a tight outfit is somehow oppression, then what exactly do we call women being arrested for not wearing a headscarf? Modern slavery? State-sanctioned gender apartheid? Maher's point hits hard. If feminism is truly about standing up for women's rights, then it can't be selectively applied. You don't get to scream patriarchy in Beverly Hills while ignoring real tyranny in Tehran. Feminism without consistency isn't activism, it's performance. And Maher is done pretending otherwise.
And it's not just the clothes. 15 countries in the Middle East, including Gaza, have laws that require women to obey their husbands. Laws, not just Harrison Butker's opinion.
In the end, Bill Maher isn't just cracking jokes. He's exposing the hypocrisy, selective outrage, and intellectual laziness of the modern woke movement. From defending terrorist ideologies to ignoring real oppression in favor of performative activism, today's so-called progressives have lost the plot. They claim to admire heroes like Mandela, but refuse to fight for the truly oppressed. They bash their own country while ignoring atrocities abroad. Maher calls out what many are too afraid to say, and he does it unapologetically. In a world of silence and self-censorship, his voice reminds us that truth doesn't care about your hashtags, which brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this.